Hey everyone, welcome back to the Cheap Air Gunner channel. It's Cherokee Steve. Today I wanted to do a video on the oldest PCP rifle that I have. That would be the Hatsan AT-44 TACT. I've got all the bells and whistles on this. Really nice UTG scope, flashlight, laser, air stripper on the end of the barrel. I'm not going to do a review on the gun itself. What I wanted to concentrate on was, since it is such a successful platform, the AT-44 series by Hatsan has been around for a very long time. Very reliable, very dependable, extremely accurate, and providing considerable amount of power. This one is in 25 caliber. I wanted to go over adjusting the power. This has been modified so it puts out overstock power, but if you wanted to get somewhat of a tune on your gun, you can do it relatively easily. The hammer spring tension on this particular gun can be adjusted. This particular one is old enough that it predates Hatsan offering their AT-44 rifles with a long barrel option. This was the short barrel option was the only one available at the time that I purchased this. But getting into the direct adjustment on the hammer spring tension, which can be adjusted for more power or more shots. The first thing you want to do, underneath here on this particular version, there is the storage capacity for 2 extra magazines. You want to remove the front one and then flip the gun over. If you take a flashlight or you're already in a well-lighted area, you'll notice a metal tube. That's the hammer tube. And towards the front of this slot, there's a hole. Now, inside the tube is the hammer itself, which also has a hole in it. Very important. When this came out, the only way to make this adjustment was to remove the barrel assembly from the stock. Now, I drilled out a clearance hole back here to access the screw that's in the hammer, the power adjusting screw. I believe the more current versions of this have the clearance made in them to access the hammer adjustment screw, I think. Otherwise, if they don't, you would have to remove this. I would suggest putting in some clearance, if it doesn't already have it, to easily access this without having to remove this. But getting back to the adjustment, that hole in the front, with a good light or in a well-lighted area, you're going to have to line up the hole in the hammer with the hole that's in the hammer tube. If you don't have them lined up, you don't have an object in there, it has to go all the way through the tube and through the hammer itself. That way, when you make an adjustment with your wrench back here, I keep mine attached. That's why I made this Allen wrench with the L shape cut off and added a knob on it and a guide to my particular gun. But with the Allen wrench turning, if you don't have a small long Allen wrench or something like that, it has to be pushed through the hole in the hammer tube and then through the hole in the hammer itself. If not, if you don't have anything sticking in through that hole through here, and you go to turn this, the hammer is just going to spin along with the wrench. It's not going to give you any adjustment. So you need to keep the hammer from turning. That's the reason for the hole inside the hammer. That has to be lined up with the hole in the hammer tube. I have a small PVC tube container that I made that I keep a single shot tray in. The other thing that I keep in it, I made this out of a section of a metal coat hanger. But this is what I use to stick through the hole. And it fits in, and I can carry it in my tube that's attached to my sling. But once that's put this in through both of the holes, then make your adjustments to your Allen wrench back here. Now this is important. Turning in, rotating your Allen wrench clockwise and turning the hammer adjustment screw in will decrease power. It'll give you more shots if that's what you're looking for. Going counterclockwise or screwing it out is going to increase power and decrease shots. Another thing to note, the side lever does not do not pull back the side lever to get the hammer in the right spot. It should be closed. The gun should not be cocked. And that is the way you can rotate and line up the hole in the hammer with the hole in the hammer tube. Once that's inserted and the holes are lined up and it will prevent the hammer from springing, you can make your adjustment either in or out to your hammer screw adjustment. Right now mine is screwed in all the way up against the guide that I've installed. I've tuned mine for power. I don't really plank with it. It's specifically for hunting. So the number of shots I get is not necessarily important to me. It very well may be important to you. And that may be the direction you want to go with your adjustment, with that screw going in. With a couple of turns out, and I can see the handle that I've added to my Allen wrench, the gap in between the guide and the handle itself is getting bigger and bigger as I turn it counterclockwise. Again, that's going to increase power. You want to be careful. You can completely unscrew the screw from the hammer, which you don't want to do, and you'll just have to play around. Another reason why you would want a chronograph to see exactly where the adjustments are getting you. You might want to keep track of the turns that you're turning it in or out. One turn in from where the factory set it at will get you a certain velocity. One turn back from where the factory set it at will get you a different velocity. But it is very easy to adjust. And don't quote me on this, but I do believe that the current versions of this have the clearance back here to insert an Allen wrench to get to the hammer spring screw, adjustment screw. Enough people did this modification and posted on forums that it was inconvenient to have to remove the barrel from the stock in order to make an adjustment to the hammer spring. And enough people wanted to make those adjustments, whether it was to tune it down for more shots or to tune it up for more power. Hatsan, I believe, actually listened to the feedback that was going on out there on the airgun forums and put a clearance slot/hole in the stock so that it can be reached Hopefully that is the case. If you have a more recent AT-44, you can let me know in the comments. But as far as the TACT goes, this is the way it would be adjusted. I can test it out and get a power number. I was just looking up online where an AT-44 with a short barrel is rated at velocity-wise. And on Pyramid Air's site, it says 870 feet per second, or 40 foot-pounds of energy. As far as the modifications that have been made to this particular gun, it's pretty much exactly the same things that I did to my 357 Hatsan Carnivore, with valve modifications and opening up ports, things of that nature. I do want to specify that the air tube that's used on the AT-44 series is not the same as the air tube that's used on the Carnivore, which is based on the BT-65 Hatsan series. The valves are different. The modification process of the valves is pretty much the same, but they're not interchangeable. That's what I wanted to specify. But I just took a shot downrange with the gun with the 28.4 grain Barracuda Hunter Extreme by H&N. I got a velocity of 902 feet per second. Power-wise, I'll calculate out what that comes to in foot-pounds of energy. So going to the muzzle energy calculator, using that 902 feet per second with the 28.4 grain Barracuda Hunter Extreme pellets, that calculates out to 51.3 foot-pounds of energy. Now that's what I was really looking for when I went to modify this gun, was to get a minimum of 50 foot-pounds of energy. Again, going over the stock numbers that Pyramid Air gives for an AT-44, it lists 870 feet per second. Now, it doesn't mention with what grain pellet that's tested with, but I'm well over that with the 902. It also lists it's capable of 40 foot-pounds of energy, which I'm well over that, as I just went over 51.3 foot-pounds of energy. That is partially due to the modifications, but also obviously partially because of the adjustment I just made. Now also keep in mind that with constant firing of the gun, movement of the hammer, pulling the side lever back, cocking the gun, firing the gun, and repeating that process, you may get some movement on that adjustment screw. There are ways of locking it down that I have read about on forums. I haven't gone that far. I just figured I would keep watching. The other thing I do is make a mark on the handle on the wrench that I permanently keep attached. That wrench moves back with the cocking of the gun, but pushing it forward, lining up the mark with where I remembered it being last, I can also keep track of that screw moving in or out. As a quick visual reference to whether or not it's turned in or it's turned out, and keeping it tuned right where I want it. So that's really what I wanted to do. I don't want to go over a full review of the gun. There's a lot of AT-44s out there. Hopefully, if you have one, this helps you. This is specific to the TACT. It's very easy to get to that hole in the hammer tube and the hammer itself because of the extra storage capabilities for these two magazines underneath here and the one, which removing the clip from that front slot gives you easy access to the holes. Not quite so easy on an AT-44 that is not like the TACT version. But if you do have an AT-44 and it is the TACT version, that's how you would go about adjusting the power on it, whether you want to go up or down. So hopefully this may help somebody. If not, I hope you found the video interesting anyway. Thanks for checking it out. You guys stay safe and shoot safe.